Hi friends, welcome to this episode of Running Reunion. I am excited that you are here, excited with this series, and excited to introduce you to my guest today, who is Amelia Gapin. She was on the show in episode 65, way back in June 2018, and she is going to tell you a little bit about who she is in just a moment, but she has been someone who I have really enjoyed learning from over the years, and she just has a easy to love personality that I think you're really going to enjoy here today. I love how she is relentlessly herself and always has been. And if you did miss the episode, you can go back. I will put a link in the show notes to that episode. So without any further ado, let's give UCAN a quick thank you. We'll be right to the episode with Amelia Gapin. Thank you to UCAN for sponsoring this episode of Running Reunion for the Running for Real podcast. I am proud and excited to have been working with UCAN since 2012. It is my favorite go-to fuel and source. I have been using it in races for many years, and I was very excited last year when they came out with UCAN Edge. Now, it's not just me who loves UCAN Edge. UCAN Edge was voted by Runners World as one of the best foods to eat during a run. It has these slower acting carbs that are easier to digest and will keep your blood sugar levels stable. Now, UCAN Edge comes in strawberry, banana, and orange flavors. It's this in this convenient portable pouch that is going to put super starch in your hand. It is what I'm going to be using in all my races upcoming. It has this delicious fruit flavor. It goes down really easy. It's really easy to enjoy, and it's going to mean you have no spikes, no crash. It's also trusted by the pros like Sarah Hall and Emma Bates. Emily Sisson all use UCAN for their races. So thank you again to UCAN for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. You can use code TINAUCAN. That's Tina UCAN at ucan.co to go get yourself 20% off there. That's code Tina UCAN at ucan.co. Amelia, welcome back to the Running for Real podcast. I cannot believe June 2018. We are coming up on 4 years since you were on the show, but welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I was very excited to get your email and get to do this, spend this time with you.
Yeah,
I can't believe 4 years.
I know. I mean, there's so many elements of that to me that are surprising, but another of which is that I still haven't met you in person. So we have to change that in the next 4 years. Hopefully we won't have a pandemic in the middle of it this time though. So it'll be a bit easier.
We have been in the same room. But we haven't actually met. Yeah.
You didn't come up afterwards, did you?
No, there was so much going on after that podcast. Was that Boston 2019 or 2018?
I still remember your question. Because you asked something like
I asked if you all competed with each other.
Like No, I remember that because I was like, ooh, I wonder what everyone's going to say here. And we are friends. We do support one another. But I was like, I wonder if I view this the same as everyone else. But I remember you asking that question and being like, oh, yes, I like it. Like, go for that. So that said, for the listeners, if they maybe haven't, I would imagine there's a lot of people listening who weren't listeners in 2018. Tell us who you are and where does your passion lie?
I am Amelia Gapin. I am a runner and by trade a software engineer. I live in Jersey City, which, if you're not familiar with the area, is literally just across the Hudson. At the end of my block, about a half mile up my block, is the Hudson River. And then on the other side is One World Trade. So I live very close to New York City. Mm-hmm. I am quote unquote famous, or was for like 10 seconds, because I was on the cover of Women's Running in June 2016 as I think I've been putting it as the first out transgender woman on the cover of a women's fitness magazine, which has so many different
mouthful.
Right. There are so many caveats and like little things to make that statement true, which is why it's not something I typically say, but it is kind of, I think, what I became known for a little while.
Mm-hmm. And again, I will encourage people to go back and listen to the episode with Amelia to get to know her on a deeper level and get to know your story and stuff like that. But, it's interesting in the running world that we have, as you said, kind of, this is what I'm known for. Like, it's funny of this world that we live in now that we say things, when the things you mentioned at first are actually the things that matter to us, but we do feel like we need to also state other things that, like, when it comes to it, like when we're hopefully 90 something years old and we're passing away, those things just won't matter, to say, because it's just about who we are on the inside. So, well, thank you for sharing that. And my next question I'd like to ask you is, how are you really? So give me a few emotions, give me, just the real update. How are you?
I think that question gets more and more loaded every time anybody has asked it over the last 2 years or even 6 years, if you really want to go back. And I think, I always say, I'm okay. And I am. I've been very lucky personally. I've avoided COVID all this time. My job is one where I get to work remote. So that's been really nice. And I feel thankful for that. But the world, it weighs heavy on my heart, especially the attacks on LGBTQ people in Texas and Florida, and frankly, half the states in this country at
Absolutely.
this point. They weigh on me a lot, especially a lot are really targeted at kids and children. And so that weighs a lot. Ukraine weighs a lot on me. So there's so much going on. And I feel like every day we have some new horror that just kind of piles on it, and we never resolve any of them. They're all there for the last 6 years plus. So we just keep piling on top. And so, how am I really? I don't know. Yeah. I sometimes I think I dissociate to get through. I just find little bits of joy. And I come back to how lucky I have been. I have a very stable job and I get to work remote. I have these cats that are crawling all over me as I speak that just, they bring that little bit of joy in my life and pick me up. So without them, I think the answer might be really different, but I'm okay. I'm getting through. I am looking forward to one day having a pandemic behind us instead of, surrounding us, but things could be worse. And I focus on that. I focus on the good stuff, even when the bad stuff gets me down.
I think that's so relevant because you're right. Like, if you allow yourself to become swallowed up in all the negative, then it's just suffocating. But the only way of getting through all of that, and it's not like this is just a new thing. Like, all of history has had its struggles with things, but the way to get through that is, as you said, to pick those little things in the day to day that just bring us just that little bit of joy that make our lives what they are. We're always seeking those big moments, but it is about those little things, like you said, just simple things like your cat, or just being with friends and family, going for a run, things like that. So thank you for sharing the truth of how you're doing. So on that note, what is something that's made you smile today?
I'm going to go back to the cats because, every morning, so we have 3 cats, Fry, Hattie, and Nibbler, and they're little monsters, but they're so entertaining and silly, and they have their own little personalities, and they interact with each other the way they interact with us. It makes our whole house feel like it comes to life in a way that I can't imagine not having pets. And so every morning, usually they're the first part of my day. Nibbler likes to come lay across my neck while I'm laying in bed, and he's floofy and the softest thing I've ever heard. So he just lays down across my neck and starts purring, and I call it scarfing. He's lays down like a little scarf. And that's my favorite way to start the day. It's been one of my favorite things about working remote is I just get to lay there and snuggle with him. And it always puts a smile on my face. And then I get up and just see them running around. And I like that. And whenever I need a smile, I go find them and I torture them. So we call giving them love torturing them, because if anybody who's had a cat knows that trying to give a cat affection when they're not asking for it is providing them torture. Mm-hmm. And that always gives me a lot of joy. And then the silly thing I've been doing, we have construction right outside our window, and my wife and I both work from home, and the construction's really loud, and it is 10 feet outside our window, just right beside behind our apartment, there was an empty lot, and now they're building like a 14-story building.
Of course.
And so I think about all the ways I would heckle the construction workers, kind of the way that like stereotypically construction workers street harass women. I just sit here at home and I just like heckle them, and I keep the windows closed because they're just doing their jobs. But you know, I wake up, I'm like, "How's it going, boys?" You know, and I have this like voice I do. And
you have a secret relationship with them in your head.
Right. And my wife just like rolls her eyes every time, but like, let me have this, like I said, it comes back to finding that little bit of joy, and it gives me a smile, even if it's stupid.
I think that's fine. And like you said, it's not like you're doing anything to them, but
right.
Yeah, I think something if it brings you joy and it's something that's not doing anyone any harm, then yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So what is a high moment or a few high moments that you would like to share with us? I mean, it could be, as we said, it's 3.5 years since we last talked, but on the podcast, but what is something that has been a high moment in your life that you want to share with the listeners?
So it's funny, these 3.5 years very specifically have been really tough for me running wise. After I qualified for Boston, I kind of wanted to shift gears, and I wanted to like try to run just more races. And so I had this goal in 2018 of I was going to run 8 marathons. I ran 5, which was amazing. Like you can't feel bad about running 5 marathons in a year.
No.
But after the 4th one, I really just kind of hit this wall and was struggling even with like short runs and just feeling really fatigued. And I've been fighting through that for the last few years, and it's changed my relationship with running a bit. Whereas, now it's like, oh God, 4 miles, that's a long run. Whereas like it used to be, I would just pop out the door, run 8-10 miles because that was the shape I was in. And so like I got out of shape a little bit, but I was still running, just not a lot of mileage. And I started a run streak December 1st of 2020. And I didn't think I would last 30 days, honestly. I didn't think, and it was just supposed to be 1 month, like run every day, 1 mile every day. Well, this past December, I hit 365 days, and I'm actually still going, closing in on 500 now. Wow. So, and hitting that year mark was really big for me, because it's like, yeah, this isn't the long distance. This isn't marathon. This isn't the kind of running that I was doing before, but I'm getting up every day and at least going out there. Most of my runs are just a mile. I just start to break a sweat by the time I'm done, but it's been nice, and it's felt really good to kind of find something that I commit to. And and I got to this point, and I think the high kicked in when I realized there was no fight to get out the door to do it, even because it was just 1 mile. So even at the end of the day, if it was like a crappy day and I was really tired, I was like, it's just 1 mile. Why even fight it? And it just kind of changed my relationship a little with running, and it felt good to still have that relationship, but have it change a little after struggling for a couple of years before with just not being that into it.
That's so good to hear, because I think quite often we see the other side of it, and in the like, people are, as you said, really committed to something. They really want to do something, and then they either like lose traction, or an injury kind of sets them off course, and then it's just hard to get back into it. But the amount of people I've heard over the last few years who have used run streaks to help them is actually really surprising. It's really been a motivating factor and help people get out of a rut. And as you said, change the relationship to running so that it's not just about the races, the accomplishments, the finish line. So I really love hearing that. And thank you that's a really cool high moment, and one that definitely deserves to be celebrated. And I'm sure that will help a lot of people listening who are feeling stuck in a rut, because it does happen, and we just don't hear that talked about often. So thank you for sharing that. That's a really important point. Okay. What would you like to remind everyone listening to this today, if you were to give them one message just about life, about whatever? Yeah, what would you say?
The thing that I think I'd like to remind people, it comes back to what I said before about the attacks on trans youth specifically around the country right now. A lot of it, the attack started with youth sports, and now it's on healthcare. And I think that all really needs our attention, but needs a lot of attention, because these are children. It's not just that they're attacking adults, or they're attacking children, but it's part of a very deliberate attempt to legislate trans people out of existence. They want to make it so hard for us to exist that we don't. And people really need help. If you want to learn more, you can check out what Chase Strangio tweets on Twitter. Chris Mosier is an amazing person to follow for that. He's a trans man who does a duathlon. There's a lot of great information coming from them, and I think that they're a good central source. But trans people really, really need your help and support. And we're just, the people who are hanging out, doing our thing, living our lives just like you are. I'd like to think that I come across as a relatively normal person. And in that regard, like, this is what trans people are. We're just, these kind of people who are just living our lives. So give it some thought. I think that's what I'd like to tell people. Give it some thought, learn about what's happening, figure out how you can help.
So you would say the first person you mentioned, I don't actually follow.
Chase Strangio.
Chase Strangio. I'll put links in the show notes to both Chris and Chase, but sorry, you were going to say? I
was going to say Chase is a lawyer for the ACLU.
Oh, okay.
He's a trans man, and he's been very, very involved in fighting these lawsuits around the country for the last few years.
So you would say that that's kind of the first thing to do, is maybe to follow them, learn from them, educate, and then, maybe be prepared to speak up at, if people can, to speak up at board meetings or, hearings.
Contact representatives, especially because a lot of this is happening at the state level, which means it doesn't get quite as much attention. So contact your state representatives. And Chase and Chris are really good. If you follow them on Twitter, they tweet out all the information you need. They tweet out links to like people's phone numbers or email addresses, where there's very little work left for you to do at that point. They make it really easy. And I think that, we just want to live our lives and go out there and participate in our sports and be a part of it. That's all we really want is get to be a part of the same kind of public life that everybody else gets to have. And
that's all any human wants, right? Like that's the whole thing of kind of what's going on in our time right now is everyone just has always, but especially now that, the conversations are happening, everyone just wants to feel seen and loved and safe and at peace. Like we all want the same thing as humans. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Amelia. Where can people go find you if they want to follow along and don't already?
The best place to follow me is on Twitter. My handle is entirely Amelia. It's a handle that's been with me for a long time, and it's what I use everywhere. And that's really, really where I spend most of my time running my mouth. I like to say that I run my mouth a lot. And Twitter's I still have my old blog at amelia.run, but I haven't posted anything there in a while. But I'd like to get back to it.
Okay.
Twitter's always the best place to find me.
All right. And I will put a link to the show notes in the episode with Amelia, which I want to say is episode it's definitely around the first 50, may even be under the first 50 episodes. So I will put a link in the show notes to that episode so you can go listen. Thank you, Amelia, for catching up with us. And I hope next time we can catch up in person. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciated it.
Hi, friends. Just a quick message to say a big thank you to the Running for Real team. While I may be the face of Running for Real and the voice behind the podcast, there are a group of people who are working tirelessly to provide everything that runners could need within our community to make our community stronger, better, and evolve and grow and learn from one another. We are working really hard to make Running for Real the place we believe it can be within our community. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone on our team. That is Victoria, Stacy, Sandy, Sally, Maria, Kelsey, Kat, Jeremy, and Erica. I appreciate each and every one of you and the hard work that you put in. Now let's get back to the show.
Thank you so much to Amelia for joining me today. And you can go into the show notes, or you can just go to runningforreal.com and type in her name to go find that previous episode with her. That was episode 65. And I just want to thank her for her time today and for sharing that with us and just letting us check in with her. It's always fun to do that. Thank you again to UCAN for sponsoring this episode. You can use code TINAUCAN to get yourself 20% off at ucan.co. And friends, I will see you on Friday for a regular episode, on Monday for a Together Run, and next Wednesday for another mini running reunion episode.